folks. Welcome to the Fry My Calamari Show. And it's a wild and crazy world out there, folks. We'll start the evening off with this. This was in the Oval Office today with KidRock, very well respected, distinguished guests of the White House. Can never get enough Trump, right? Let's see what he's talking about.
Terrible. In fact, you have a Tessler, and you love it. You love it. He was saying before he bought a Tessler, he loved it. A lot of people are buying Teslers, I think, and I hope they are. He should not be treated.
A lot of people have Tesslers, and they love them. I hope they love them. Tesslers. That's really how he says it. Tessler. Fascinating. In case you missed it, this was what Mr. KidRock was wearing. Definitely more respectful than the president of Ukraine, huh? And he knows how to dress to impress. Look at that.
So they don't want to enforce the Bots Act necessarily because they're making more money off it. The artists don't see any of that money, but that's not what I'm advocating for, is for me to make more money. I want the fans to have fair ticket prices, be able to go and enjoy more shows. I know people that they decide on a family vacation or going to their favorite concert once a year rather than...
Yes, they're advocating to have price caps on ticket sales. What's wrong? Capitalism isn't working as it should, and the ticket sales and unlimited profit isn't actually always a good thing. And yeah, here we have KidRock in the Oval Office advocating for socialist policy, for some heavy regulation on the ticket sales industry, and as well as price caps. Very much socialist policy, socialist behavior. That's fascinating. Next, we have Trump talking about his third term. Is anybody really surprised by this? That's the sad part, is it's not really surprising, but it's still bad, still frightening, and still needs to be pointed out. We cannot let this man serve a third term. It is against, I believe, the 22nd Amendment.
If you were allowed, for some reason, to run for a third term, is there a thought that the Democrats could try to run Barack Obama against you?
I'd love that.
For his third term?
Boy, I'd love that. That would be a good one. I'd like that. No, people are asking me to run, and there's a whole story.
Okay, I partially want to blame the stupid reporter here for basically baiting him into that question. Hey, just suppose you were allowed, if whoever they, which would obviously be him, creating a coup in his own government to allow. What does he mean, if you were allowed? Just a crazy hypothetical. That would mean that you broke some pieces of the government so badly that you're being allowed to even run for a third term. Things are not well.
I don't know. I never looked into it. They do say there's a way you can do it, but I don't know about that. But I have not looked into it. I want to do a fantastic job. We have 4 years.
I've not looked into it, but they do say there's a way it can be done. When did they say that to you? When you weren't looking into it? When exactly did they say that to you? How could Trump be president for a third term? Trump supporters say there's a loophole in the Constitution, untested in court. They argue that the 22nd Amendment only explicitly bans someone being elected to more than 2 presidential terms and says nothing of succession. Okay, yes, this is what I've heard. They're saying Vance or someone would be elected and Trump would be vice president. Yeah, under this theory, Trump could be the vice presidential running mate to another candidate, perhaps his own vice president, J.D. Vance, in the 2028 election. If they win, the candidate could be sworn into the White House and then immediately resign, letting Trump take over by succession. Steve Bannon, the podcaster and prominent former Trump, do you think Trump could even handle that? Could his ego even handle having to take the crown from Vance's resignation, passing it down? I don't know. Of course, probably do anything to stay out of jail at this point if you're Trump. Steve Bannon said he believed Trump would run and win again, adding there were a couple of alternatives in determining how. Andy Ogles, a Tennessee Republican in the House of Representatives, introduced a resolution in January calling for a constitutional amendment to allow a president to serve up to 3 terms as long as they were not consecutive. This would mean that only Trump, of all living presidents, would be eligible. Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, and George W. Bush all served consecutive terms, whereas Trump won in 2016, lost in 2020, and won again in 2024. However, the high bar for constitutional amendments makes Ogle's proposal a pipe dream, although it got people talking. You know, those people love to talk. Who opposes a Trump third term? Democrats have deep objections. This is yet another escalation in his clear effort to take over the government and dismantle our democracy, said Daniel Goldman, a New York representative who served as lead counsel for Trump's first impeachment. What do legal experts say? Derek Muller, an election law professor at the University of Notre Dame, said the Constitution's 12th Amendment says no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president shall be eligible to that of vice president of the United States. That means serving 2 terms in office disqualifies anyone from running as a vice presidential candidate in his view. So he couldn't even run as vice president. Doesn't sound like. I don't think there's any one weird trick to getting around presidential term limits, he said. Jeremy Paul, a constitutional law professor at Boston's Northeastern University, told CBS News there was no credible legal arguments for a 3rd term. Has anyone served more than 2 terms? Roosevelt, baby! They only won. It's because he got voted in like 4 times in a row. They loved the man. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected 4 times. He died 3 months into his 4th term in April 1945. The Great Depression and the Second World War colored Roosevelt's time in office and are often cited for his extended presidency. At that time, the 2-term limit on U.S. presidents had not been written into law. It was instead a custom followed since George Washington refused a 3rd term in 1796. So it's just like, I'm a gentleman, I will not go a 3rd term. Now we have Trump. I don't care about no laws. I think I can do, there's loopholes. Roosevelt's extended stewardship led to the tradition being codified into law in the 22nd Amendment in 1951. Trump says he's considering all options to obtain Greenland. All options. So I guess that includes military options. Let's find out.
President Trump says he will do whatever it takes to take control of Greenland. Speaking to an NBC reporter, Trump said that includes military force, but it probably won't be needed. This comes one day after Vice President Vance visited a U.S. military base in Greenland. Speaking to troops, he said the island is important for defense and economic reasons. The trip has sparked international backlash. The foreign minister of Denmark, which owns Greenland, released this video on social media.
And of course, we are open to criticism. But let me be completely honest. We do not appreciate the tone in which it's being delivered. This is not how you speak to your close allies. And I still consider Denmark and the United States to be close allies.
The foreign minister went on to say he's open to expanding the U.S. military presence in Greenland and that Denmark is already investing more in Arctic security.
What's crazy is we already have a military base there. It really doesn't even have to do so much with the military safety as much as there must be some resources on the land or the port or something that they have. Or he's literally just trying to say that he expanded the U.S. territory into Greenland. Like, it's just to be like, hey, I'm the first guy to actually expand U.S. He's trying to do a little Putin. If you're taking Ukraine, I'm going to take Greenland. I'm going to take Canada. These are our allies. We don't need to steal their land to get the military advantages. Let's see what the White House is saying.
And said last night he has made a decision and a determination. I was with him in the Oval Office earlier, and he is going to announce that decision tomorrow. I don't want to get ahead of the president. This is obviously a very big day. He's with his trade and tariff team right now, perfecting it to make sure this is a perfect deal for the American people and the American worker. And you will all find out in about 24 hours from now.
And are the car tariffs going to go into effect on April 3rd as scheduled?
Correct. Yes, they will.
Okay.
But what if
Yes.
they're wrong?
They're not going to be wrong. It is going to work. And the president has a brilliant team of advisors who have been studying these issues for decades. We are focused on restoring the golden age of America and making America a manufacturing superpower. My understanding is
Who are some of these experts? Can some of these experts speak up about how these tariffs make sense exactly and how they're not going to continue to crash the economy, if it's actually going to bring back elements of manufacturing? But I want to hear from these experts that are saying tariffs are a good thing, or that they're going to work a certain way. He just seems like he keeps adding more and more tariffs. Let's see what happens.
that the tariff announcement will come tomorrow. They will be effective immediately. And the president has been teasing this for quite some time, as you know. He's talked a lot about April 2nd as Liberation Day in America. It would be taking place today if not for April Fool's Day. But tomorrow will be the day, and he's been talking about it for a while. And as a result, you've seen these companies make commitments to investing right here in the United States.
He just shuts down all the trade agreements and then restarts them back up under his... It's now the Trump version, and it's 10 times better. And actually, it's like the same thing as before. Because the CHIPS Act, there was already like massive chip manufacturing going on. And it sounds like he's getting rid of that or changing it, or my guess, probably going to rebrand it. Because that huge plant, that the CHIPS plant that they're building in Arizona, that thing's pretty much built. They can't just cancel that. It's got its own like power plant. It's massive. As Donald Trump prepared to unveil a swath of reciprocal tariffs, global markets braced and some Republican senators voiced their opposition to a strategy that critics warn risks a global trade war, provoking retaliation by major trading partners such as China, Canada, and the European Union. The U.S. president said on Monday he would be very kind to trading partners when he unveils further tariffs this week, potentially as early as Tuesday night. The Republican billionaire insists that reciprocal action is needed because the world's biggest economy has been ripped off by every country in the world, promising Liberation Day for the U.S. He could also unveil more sector-specific levies. Asked for details, he told reporters on Monday, "You're going to see in 2 days, which is maybe tomorrow night or probably Wednesday." The man does not even know what 2 days is, but he added, "We're going to be very nice, relatively speaking. We're going to be very kind." Okay. Some Republican senators spoke out against Trump's tariffs on Canada and are considering signing on their support for a resolution of blocking them. Second, already China, South Korea, and Japan agreed on Sunday to strengthen free trade between themselves ahead of Trump's expected tariff announcement. But Trump said on Monday he was not worried that his action would push allies towards Beijing, added that a deal on TikTok could also be tied to China tariffs. The uncertainty has jolted markets, with key European and Asian indexes closing lower. Market nervousness intensified after Trump said on Sunday his tariffs would include all countries. Goldman Sachs analysts raised their 12-month recession probability from 20 to 35%. This reflects a lower growth forecast, falling confidence, and statements from White House officials indicating willingness to tolerate economic pain. Goldman Sachs also lifted its forecast for underlying inflation at the end of 2025. China and Canada have imposed counter tariffs on U.S. goods, while the EU unveiled its own measures to start mid-April. Other countermeasures could come after Wednesday. Brian Sweet of Oxford Economics said to expect the unexpected, anticipating that Trump would take aim at some of the largest offenders. Besides reciprocal country tariffs, Trump could unveil additional sector-specific levies on the likes of pharmaceuticals and semiconductors. Is that just going to raise the price for everyone? And semiconductors, that can't be good. He earlier announced car tariffs to take effect on Thursday. So trade imbalances, like, even though it could be framed as a negative thing, it's not necessarily a negative thing. It's just the natural flow of goods and services. Sometimes you buy more from a country than you sell to it, and you could call that an imbalance. As long as you're getting your needs met at a reasonable cost and your country's producing a reasonable GDP growth, then trade imbalances aren't really something you need to focus on. Trump loves anything he can mess with, anything that he can kind of spin the dial on freely without anybody stopping him. He's going to do it a lot because no judge can really stop him from doing it or make him look bad. But the stock market crashing can make him look bad, and it's definitely hasn't been going up since he's been president, that's for sure.